Hello folks, it's Richard Moore, and it's turned out to be a beautiful Sunday afternoon here in North Mississippi. And I don't know what the weather is in your part of the world, but of course I've got family in South Florida, and it's predictable South Florida weather, summertime weather. And usually that's rain every day, and then it clears up and it's a beautiful sunny day. So I'm going to do a segment that's similar to, or more than similar, but dovetail with the series that we have, the Killing Fields of Rose Hill. And you can check that playlist out. So I ask you to subscribe to my channel and familiarize yourself with that playlist. And the Killing Fields of Rose Hill, which Rose Hill is the former name of Oklahoma, Mississippi. But the Killing Fields of Rose Hill is not indicative to just that area in Chickasaw County. It's more indicative to a systemic element of corruption, of darkness, evil, that I grasp every day at exposing just small facets of what's actually going on. And so I get stories in some of the most peculiar ways. It's not as if I'm a social butterfly and I'm moving amongst the masses and trying to find a story. Somehow they find their way to me. And this is no exception to the rule. So, I'll give you, of course I live in North Mississippi. I grew up in Alabama. And so my mother's side of the family was from the Red Bay, Alabama area, and I went to high school, much of my high school years there in Red Bay. And I participated in all sports except baseball. I tell people the reason I didn't play baseball is I was scared of getting hit in the face with a ball. So a lot of people, and plus they practice here in the summertime, and when school was out, school was out. I'm convinced that had I applied myself properly, I would have gotten a football scholarship. But due to the fact of being groomed at a young age and burned out and being stubborn, basketball was my love. But I had no ambitions or mistaken ambitions that I would ever get a scholarship playing basketball. And so I think that's the only, matter of fact, it's the only picture that I'll display, the only picture I have displayed of myself, let's put it that way, is me with my basketball uniform on, number 31, Red Bay, Alabama. And I never connect dots. I don't do it. But I don't believe in coincidences either. I go back to my historical backstory, and there's a video on that. My cousin Charles Lee Moore was one of the most prominent and famous photographers of the Civil Rights Movement. working for Time Life magazine, later a New York Times bestseller, of his journalistic work of documenting the civil rights movement as they became friends of Dr. Martin Luther King. But on my mother's side, I had a lot of cousins, and my grandmother was a Cox, and so I have a cousin that's a dentist over, and I think he has a practice in Hamilton, and no, he's got a practice in Hamilton, and I believe one in Phil Campbell. And some years back, he took the time to do the family tree all the way back, literally to the Mayflower, maybe past that. Now, God bless him for that. It's unless you got someone in your family that's willing to go through all that, or they converted to Mormonism, you'll never get the details like I got. And so as I crossed paths with my childhood town, if you will, in Alabama, and sometimes names and events stick out. And this particular one is it is disturbing, and the way this young man's life was written, the obituary, and from what I gather, and I haven't spoke with any family member or close friends or what have you surrounding this individual, but I do want to talk about it a minute, because it's important that not only talk about it, but it's what isn't being talked about. And I'm quite sure, and I'm going to go out on a limb here like I always do, that, and this is not a broad statement, this doesn't include everyone that has had a death in their family. The family, in my opinion, chances are very strong they have not signed on to the cause of death. And the person I'm talking about is Justin Zachary, or Zach Massey. Died on April 24th, 2020. He was 31. Grew up in Smithville, and the best I could tell, that's where he passed away. He went to school at Red Bay High School. He finished school in Red Bay. Of course, I was out of high school before he was born. And he was a standout on the football team. And of course I can relate to that. This is a outgoing and active young man. It was a good job working for a company, building cell towers, and living the life that you would expect any 30 or 31-year-old to live. Now, occasionally, individuals tend to get off track. And folks, I'm going to tell you that you show me somebody that has never fell down or made a mistake, and I'll show you somebody that's either lying and they've never done anything. When I've talked about the deaths over in Amory, Caleb Prestridge, and the video I just did on Caleb Griggs, when I tell you it took 5 years for me to be able to talk about that, that's no exaggeration. And the conversation has only just begun with Caleb Prestridge, Caleb Prestridge, and Caleb Griggs. A friend of mine that was ran over and killed in broad daylight in Columbus, Mississippi. Brian Edwards. He was born and grew up in Amory. And so we can go over to Jeremy Wilson in Oklahoma. The Stevens couple, Tilda Stevens. I interviewed her and her husband a week and a half later. The story was that Fred Stevens murdered his wife Tilda and then attempted to kill himself with multiple knife wounds to his stomach. And he succumbed to those injuries about 5 months later while in the Chickasaw County Jail. Is there a fly in the ointment? I can tell you there's more than a fly in the ointment. I won't go into the details of things that, at least not at this point, that I use that are an absolute confirmation of what I suspect. And as it goes with Zach, the story was that he died in the hospital in Tupelo. And something had gone on at his house. Of course, law enforcement had been called out, and I don't have the story on that. And from the time they got out there until anyone entered the house, I believe was 45 minutes or longer. What the holdup was. If someone was there alone and their life was in danger, why didn't they go in? I'm sure they have a simple explanation for that. And I have one as well. We're talking about Monroe County, Mississippi. And we're talking about things appearing one way, but it being one off, especially when it comes to those that were closest to Zachary, or Zach, that being his mother. And to think, and I know that my mother was in the Carolinas somewhere, or maybe in East Tennessee, with a group of people from the Baptist church that were volunteering to build a church or something like that, or a house for someone, maybe a church. And to get the call that your son is gone, they hung themselves, and my mother has talked about it. We really don't talk about it now, but it's not like anybody's forgotten. But I know that had to have been the longest and most miserable car ride you could ever take. Zach's mother had to take a similar ride. When she saw her son, there was no signs of strangulation or anything that would be indicative to someone hanging themselves. Law enforcement immediately from the onset started out with lies, and that has continued. And this is often the case when the lie is set. They will do everything, and I mean everything, within their power to protect that lie. God forbid justice ever be served. There's only one reason that the lie is ever put in there. It's to protect those that cannot afford to be exposed. Well, who could it be? Because we easily dismiss deaths of this nature. Well, what happened? Well, they was on dope. Oh, well, that explains it. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. That doesn't explain or justify or excuse a death unless we have a clear and transparent understanding of the timeline of this person's death. When there is question, just like with Caleb Prestridge, the autopsy, everything contradicted the story that then Sheriff Cecil Cantrell gave. That's the same sheriff on Zachary's death as well. Was Zachary involved with individuals that most people, unless you're involved, would have absolutely no comprehension of the level of corruption and evil? Did he know and or associate in that circle? Well, I can give you a definitive yes, he did. I've never met Zachary. I've never heard his name. So I'm going to be as objective as possible here. As I look into who he is, I was astounded at the fact that how did I not have what I have now at that time or prior to that? Well, I've told many of you before, when I started talking about the death of Caleb Griggs 5 years ago, the rush is for two things. One, for me to quit talking about it, and two, they had to get me into federal prison on a phony probation violation deal. In other words, to remove me from the picture because I have a tendency of demanding transparency and calling corrupt law enforcement up for their corruption. I'm a victim of that. I happen to be one of those that survived. I very well could have been one of the individuals I've already named that are victims of this corruption that does involve law enforcement and their snitch culture of community-oriented policing. To do a full and transparent investigation or to come clean on what really happened would implicate those in positions of trust, whether they wanted to be or not. They would be smack dab in the middle of it. You're not going to get a snitch, a frontline crash dummy, and hem them up and charge them with a crime or accessory after the fact, or accessory to the fact, without them singing. And when they sing, they're not giving up a skeleton in the closet, literally they're giving up cemeteries. At this point, their testimony against those officers would become exculpatory evidence and would be damning. Not only for that department, for those individuals are facing criminal penalties, and it would pull into question cases that these officers got near in their whole career. If they would lie and cover up one, how many others did they lie and cover up? You see, it's a tall order. There's a lot at stake. But I'm going to put myself in the mother's shoes for a second. So what? A lot is at stake. And I don't care. My son deserves justice. And if I'm rocking the boat, then good. I want to turn the whole corrupt ship over. If it hair lifts the devil, that's what I want. And many of you listening, watching, can agree with me. Most of you can't on those terms. This is why each American, the most important value and asset that we have as American citizens, is that inalienable right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And when that is interfered with, or willfully and recklessly taken away and denied, we should be appalled at it, no matter their race, color, creed, sexual orientation, religion, none of those things. If a person is doing something that's wrong, we have a system. We have a country of law and order. We have a process called due process. Guilty until proven innocent. Not like it guilty until predicted, innocent until predicted guilty. That is the environment we're in today. Many Americans are innocent until predicted guilty. Until they get it in their head, they're guilty, then they follow through with their punishment. That circumvents due process, the judicial system, courts and judges and lawyers and all that. They have another way. And this other way is being protected and fought across this country. I'm not the only one. Far from it. Thank God I'm not the only one. It's looking further than the cases I have here in North Mississippi, Pasco County, Florida. And there's other places I can't name them all, but they're being challenged on multiple levels of different elements that are part of this community-oriented policing program. This is a program that is directed under the Department of Justice. Just go to their website, okay? It's everywhere. It's just like oxygen, okay? If there's oxygen there, the COPS program's there. And they operate under pet names, cute names, warm, feeling, fuzzy names. But you get this group of people that have cast their lot, and many, if not most of them, have sold out. And I'm talking about a spiritual sellout. There were other things about Zachary that I'm quite sure were not answered, that his mother probably had questions about, and they never got answered. And so I'm going to give her the respect of that if I ever talk to her. And this is, folks, it's I don't expect it one way or another. I welcome it. But I think that I can shed a lot of light. Now, what will that do? Well, first of all, I don't want her, and I don't want any other parents and family members thinking about any of their loved ones that have left under questionable circumstances. Many of them way too soon. No parent should ever have to outlive and bury one of their own children. Never. And no person should ever insinuate that parent, brother or sister, or loved one should just let it go and move on. Of course we move on. And time goes on. We don't let it go. So, that doesn't mean that our life is a life of heartache and misery. Because of my faith in Jesus Christ and His finished work at Calvary's cross, I know what the next life holds. And it's all good. But this life is not a rose garden by any stretch of the imagination. And we're living in the day that I believe it is truly harvest time. We're seeing and hearing things that we never thought we would see and hear. Nothing is going on today that the scriptures didn't tell us about. Nothing is a surprise. I think we understand things that it's going to look different. It's going to be different. Because we get this picture in our mind. Like we have this picture in our mind of what the United States is. And until many of us woke up one day and says, that's just something in my mind. Because this is not the America I grew up with. Something is different. And many of you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's more than something different. As I work to expose things such as this, I've just got started on this, folks. Once I go public with a story, I do have other people that reach out and provide information. Sometimes it trickles in, but it comes around. It comes around. And people all over the country, or globally, literally, I get messages from people and wanting me to look into individuals' death or someone that's missing, can't find them, and the list goes on and on and on. And I do have other people, I thank God for them, that assist me as it pertains to handling and dealing with situations across multiple social media platforms. It's never easy. It's not easy. And with most people, it's not something they want to talk about. But I do. I do. And if there is a slight question or something about an individual's passing, and something is, this is not in Zachary's case, I can tell you, it's more than just slight. It's more than just slight. And I think it's wrong, and it's morally wrong to slam loved ones against a steel wall of deceit and disrespect when those people are working for us, we the people, the taxpayer? How dare someone on our payroll mislead, lie, and in many times sanction and allow other people to be taken advantage of, abused, and killed, and God forbid the truth comes out, because a lot of people are going to have mud on their shoes. As it pertains to the series of the killing fields of Rose Hill, ladies and gentlemen, the blood is running neck deep. The blood is running neck deep. I had a lady yesterday ask me, said, "Are you not afraid of being shot at, or killed?" I said, I don't live in fear. Is that a realistic plausibility? I don't live in a fairyland. I'm satisfied that God has this in his hands. I won't go until he's ready. And so this old boy here that they worked years at destroying to make sure that one day I wouldn't have a voice to speak out, they were dead wrong. I'm here because of my listeners and viewers support me, and that's it. I have no desires and aspirations for the spotlight or for fame and fortune. And anyone that knows me knows that is a fact. My desires and aspirations are this: is we have millions of people across this country reporting the same crimes year in and year out. They're being marginalized, dismissed. And now we're in a time when if a person got close to someone that was using drugs and they die, then that's an automatic case closed, problem solved. That's not legal, nor is that it's morally reprehensible for anyone to think. So is that the new deal? That Americans across this country that may or may not be struggling with addiction are fair game? Are fair game to abuse? Fair game for human trafficking? Fair game as being patsies for those in positions of power to take the hit for something they didn't do? So we can take advantage of these people as opposed to offering protections or doing more. And I will get on that subject of drugs. We wouldn't have them here if this country did not have one of the most booming, thriving, money-making businesses on this planet, and that is the correction and justice system. They can't build enough prisons. It's not designed for anyone to get out and stay out. That is foolish for anyone to believe that. Recidivism pays, and it pays big. You don't have to look any further than publicly traded corporations like Correction Corporation of America, private prisons and contractors, judges, attorneys, prosecutors, law enforcement, new jails, construction work. It goes on and on and on and on. If the crimes were not there, and there's no argument to say, well, crimes will always be there. Well, sure it will. As long as we make the environment and create this paradigm. And that's exactly what it is. It is the perfect cataclysmic paradigm of destruction in America. So one person at a time, one city at a time, one state at a time, whatever we have to do. It's my job, and I will continue to do it, to expose it and call it for what it is and call it into question. Who am I calling into question here? Of course, I'm calling in the coroner and the sheriff and other law enforcement officials outside of Monroe County that are full aware of Zachary's death. And I know you don't want that to come out, but I do think it's fair that we not allow Zach and his death. He was 31 years old. To be just something in the rearview mirror and we just move on because we've all got problems. That's not how we do it. That's not how we do it. It could be one of your family members next. And no one wants to be in the position to get that phone call that Zachary's mother got. My mother got the same call. I know what it did to my dad and my mother. I know what it did to me. I have no idea how it affected those outside the family. I've never really contemplated it. I just know that in 1982, my brother was 18 years old. The report was he hung himself in a Muscle Shoals, Alabama city jail cell. That would have been an impossible feat within itself. There were so many questions, so many wrong things that happened during that. Of course, I was only 16 then, and I didn't have any idea or know anything then like I do now. I always knew there were a whole bunch of lies and a whole bunch of unanswered questions, including the police chief that had stole and sold property that belonged, had been taken from my brother when they arrested him for public drunkenness. He was passed out in the phone booth. And that met the bar. He was drunk in the phone booth, drunk tape, and he died. Folks, it's a small bar. And once they tell that, that's the way it sits. So, do I have a vested interest? I absolutely do. And every single time, my mind goes somewhere else. God has a way of pulling me back to things that said, you need to talk about this. And so I'll talk about those things that when I feel like it's the time. And so today was the time, for whatever reason, to talk about Justin Zachary Massey. When we start holding our elected officials and those in positions of trust responsible and holding them to a light of full transparency, all we can expect is more of the same. It doesn't matter who the new sheriff is or who the police chief is, unless unless heads are rolling, and we see indictments and arrest of those that have been drawing and living on welfare, which is the taxpayer dole for all these years. That's one indicator that things are changing. Not a changing of the guard. Same stuff, different face. We've had enough of that, really. We have absolutely had enough of that. And I still believe in God and country and our Constitution. Apparently, these people that ride around with protect and serve on the side of their vehicle didn't think we'd ever pick up on that part of protect and serve your own self-interest. But we're on to it now. Many of you have been on to it. And our best way is exposure and to challenge these things in the appropriate and through the judicial system much of which they have denied many citizens because it's too big. It's become overwhelming. But with God, all things are possible. All things are possible. Let me hear from you. I encourage you to share, subscribe. You can also support what we're doing. And you can follow us across most of the platforms. I have a blog, a WordPress, Reddit, Tumblr, Quora, etc. But you can support through our GoFundMe, or you become a Patreon at United States Anti-Gang Stalking Association. I also post in the comments area my email address. And I welcome your feedback in the comments area. Until next time, God bless you.